Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're talking about a recent leak for the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom OLED edition. So a few days ago, it was very early in the morning, or rather really late in the night for me, and I saw a few messages. I took a look at them, I saw all the pictures, I checked some message boards, and I was like, okay, I gotta make a video on this, and we put out a video about this OLED leak like around 5 or 5:30 in the morning. And sure enough, everyone else talked about it too, because this is crazy news. It really took up a lot of attention because it's pretty believable. This could be a legitimate leak for an OLED Switch. However, after having taken a look at it over the last few days, and even as I noted initially, it could be a fabrication. As convincing as it might be, this could just be someone who did a really good job. And looking over everything, there are things I've noticed that are making me a little bit more suspect. And the first thing I noticed, as I alluded to initially, even though I was definitely leaning more towards it being real then, is that we got news of this leak in late December, even though the game's coming out May 12th. That's a very, very early on leak for an OLED edition. Extremely early. So that alone has me kind of skeptical that this could be a legitimate OLED leak, now after having taken a few days to really think on it. But this still could be real, and it could be hinting at certain elements in Tears of the Kingdom. So we're analyzing this leak, taking a look at some of the imagery. There could be some things here that could be nice details for the game, but then also we're going to be looking at it from a critical perspective of trying to see if maybe this might not be so real, because I think that's also a strong possibility here. I think we shouldn't make an assumption in either direction, because I think both are possibilities. So let's get into this little analysis here. Alright, so right off the bat, I want to point out that this isn't the most high quality image ever. It's not terrible, we can tell what it is, but the lower image quality does definitely obscure some details. We can't see everything super clearly. The lighting also does obscure the image as well. There are other images here, but still overall, it's not the most clean, clear, crisp image we can get. There's a lot of people who have pretty good high quality phones these days, and the camera quality here is apparent. It's not as good. Of course, you know, there's different types of technologies and phones. Maybe they just didn't have that good of a camera. That's definitely a possibility here. But it's just, you know, something to take into consideration. It is definitely making it easier to hide the fact that this could be a fabrication. But let's continue on. So, one of the first things I want to talk about is the text they're using here to show off that it's a Switch model and it's a Tears of the Kingdom edition. It's pretty basic. And when we take a look at some other OLED editions we've seen, they're a little bit more clean. It just says OLED at the bottom, and then here, this is for the Splatoon one, obviously, and here they say Special Edition in the middle of the box. It's a lot nicer. There's more of an actual Splatoon flair. And then let's take a look at the Pokemon one. They have, like, a gold box here. It says Nintendo Switch Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Edition, and it says OLED at the bottom as well. It's a far cleaner, sharper look. And what we have here is not really that. So it definitely leaves me a little skeptical, like it's just not as good. But it could be the case that maybe this is just a regional variant and they just don't show them the same. That is possible. I've seen some versions that don't look quite as good as the versions we're seeing here for Splatoon and Pokemon. I've seen other versions that just don't look as good. So, you know, it doesn't straight up mean that this is fake, but it is something to consider. Now, something that I really want to focus on here with this next set of imagery is the logo here on the dock. This is something we've seen before. It's not the first time we've seen this logo. This logo was actually used in the Hyrule edition for a new Nintendo 3DS XL. And a few things I'll note about this box. This box looks really nice. It's got this really cool background. The Hyrule edition has a lot more detail compared to what we're seeing for the bottom of this box here. By comparison, there's definitely a difference there. And yes, this logo here is the exact same logo. There are no differences, just the color swap. That is it. Except it's a little bit more obscured and faded out because of the light. So that's something else to note. It's a repeat. Now, repeating promotional art isn't necessarily indicative that it's a leak, but it definitely, in my opinion, decreases the chances of this being real, but it's not for sure. It could still go either way. Now, we do see like a very subtle white silhouette of the Ouroboros symbol we see here. You can see like the little notches, and here we can see the little notches. So there you go, that could still all be there, and it still may be legitimate, but it's just another detail I'm noticing. Instead of going for the straight up Ouroboros logo on the dock, they're going for something different, but that may make sense because the logo itself has it there, so they may want variety with the actual dock showcasing it on the actual box. But now let's take a look at this circular-like design we're seeing, because we also see it in the background as well. We see it in the back here. There's like this circular-like design in the background, and when I was thinking about it, I was wondering, we've seen this before, or rather something similar, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first, but I eventually realized this kind of like circular-like design we've seen in Breath of the Wild. So I took a look at Breath of the Wild, the game itself. In the menu screen, you can see that there is this circular-like background. It's also in all over creating a champion. It's something they use for Breath of the Wild, but it's not the same. It is different. The Breath of the Wild one had circles with thicker circles in the middle and a lot of waves. This is just circles upon circles. I'd argue that this is a little bit more simplified and basic, not as cool, but you know, it still gives off a similar look, and maybe that's all they were going for, and it's really nothing beyond that. However, it might be a little deeper than that, because if you look at the version of this sort of look on the dock itself, I could argue that these almost look like droplets. Droplets like maybe tears from Tears of the Kingdom, maybe those drops or tears we see in the sequel trailer, the second one. That could be what it's alluding to, which might actually be a really cool detail if this is real. Now the next thing I want to focus on are some of the logos we're seeing on the Joy-Con. So in the front we see what appears to be something with two little eyes. You got like an egg-like shaped thing in the middle, and then two wing-like structures. This looks a lot like what we have seen in the second trailer with this guy here. So this guy here, what's interesting about it, there's a few little interesting details. One, you see the shoulders, or maybe shoulders, of this egg-like shape like we saw in the Joy-Cons. And then what could be the eyes, even though they're not being used as eyes on this particular creature, you see it right here. You see the three little divots, you see that on the Joy-Con logo as well. Right here it looks almost like a bell design, but if you take off this top part, it's the same thing, and we see those eyes being used on the Joy-Cons. So they could have taken that design from this creature just to kind of replicate and show that, hey, they're sort of using the ideas from the trailer to kind of showcase this look, and that's part of the fabrication, or this is simply a common motif we're going to be seeing throughout Tears of the Kingdom, and they're showcasing that on the Joy-Cons, assuming this is real. Now focusing here on this shot of the back of the OLED Switch when it's in tabletop mode, something I'm going to note is that we don't get the clearest shot of all the look of the texture in the back. Like, it's a little obscured and blurry here and here as well and here as well. And I just have to wonder why it's obscured so much. Like, maybe there's a pixelization issue or what have you, but there's an inconsistency. So here you could argue, oh, it's just the lighting, okay. Well, here it becomes more clear, but then here it gets blurry, and here it's sharp. Here it's sharp, it gets blurry, here it's sharp, it gets blurry randomly, and here it's sharp. It's actually kind of splotchy, so I'm almost skeptical that this might just be a little bit of a Photoshop job. And on the note of a Photoshop job, take a look at the shadows we're seeing here at the bottom of this shot of the Switch and its dock, and now let's take a look at a comparison of a Splatoon version. We don't see any shadows here, so that's another inconsistency we're noticing. And when I look at this image here, this is depicting the back of the OLED box. And something I sort of wondered, okay, do all backs of OLED boxes look the same? You got the strapped Joy-Cons at the top left, tabletop mode top right, dock switch in the front in the middle, back of the dock switch on the bottom left, and then back of the Joy-Cons on the bottom right. So I took a look at the back of the Splatoon model. It matches up exactly. Strap Joy-Cons to the top left, tabletop mode top right, dock switch in the middle, back of the dock bottom left, back of the Joy-Cons bottom right. It matches up exactly. So maybe it's the case that this is just a typical pattern they do for all the OLED models. Except, when I take a look at the Pokemon version, well, it's a little different. Top's the same, strap Joy-Cons top left, top right is tabletop mode, but the middle isn't a front of dock switch, it's actually the back of the Switch in handheld mode, and then the bottom shows the front of the dock switch, and then the bottom right shows the back of the dock switch. So the orientation is a little bit different. Of course, this could simply be attributed to they want to showcase different looks and designs for the system, and it could be as simple as that. It could be the case that, you know, they just decide to create a new pattern that they're going to start to follow now. Or it could be the case they simply modeled this OLED edition off the Splatoon one, and that's what it is. Because you could argue maybe all of them should have a slightly different pattern, because they're going to showcase things differently to focus on the different details for each particular version of these OLEDs. So just something I'm noting that it has the exact same pattern as the Splatoon one, this potential Tears of the Kingdom OLED one. Now here we have an up close and personal shot at the Joy-Cons, and the right Joy-Con looks fairly solid. I like it a lot, and you know, there's been some debate about this green. Some people seem to like it, some people don't seem to like it. I think this logo here is cool, as we've discussed earlier. But something I want to really sort of harp on is the control stick. What is up with it? Is this just dirty wrapping? It's clearly something is not right here. Could it be that the Joy-Cons are used and these control sticks look kind of warped? There's something off about this that is just a little weird. And what's interesting about this is that the only picture we have, physically, of this entire OLED model are the Joy-Cons. And it just so happens that the only physical picture we have of this is one that has this Joy-Con thing looking kind of wonky. So that's something else that has me wondering. Could it be that they tried their best to make the Joy-Cons look how they should look, but you know, it's not perfect? And then with the rest of the system, it was purely a Photoshop job, a solid Photoshop job, but that's what it is, a Photoshop job, because they don't actually have any pictures of the dock itself. That's something else I'm sort of wondering. It does make me a little skeptical of what may be going on here. Now, something else I'm going to point out before we close out this little analysis, because this, again, still could be real, is these runes here. One rune, it appears to be the rune we see on Link's hand from one of the little clips we've gone, as Nintendo has starved us over all this time. Here you can see Link's hand. It appears to be the same rune. It's a little hard to see, but this looks to be it. And that's kind of a cool little detail. So the implication would be that this other one might be another rune hinting at another power that we may have in the game, and we haven't seen this yet, so there could be another power there. But what makes me kind of curious is, okay, that's one rune, and this is another. Are there only two powers that are the runes that we're seeing in Tears of the Kingdom, and that's the only ones they're going to showcase on the Joy-Cons? Just seems like a weird little detail to showcase, but, you know, could be it. Then maybe there's only two runes, but they have a lot of flexibility, or maybe they just picked these because they wanted to put something on there, assuming this is a fabrication, but again, we don't really know. But I've just noticed some things that are kind of odd, could just be design choices, could just be that this is an early version of the OLED box, and it was taken by someone else elsewhere, and there you go. Actually, another little detail is that we take a look here, there's a lot of asymmetry to this image. We see a random, like, symbol here floating that's just there, and then the rest is all circular, so that's another kind of weird little detail that just kind of there, just kind of random, and this is a little chipped up, which is maybe them trying to vary up the logo a little bit. Looking at it, I can't say for sure if this is real or not. It could just be that random issue with the Joy-Con is just something wrong with the wrapping or what have you, not actually the stick itself. It's not super clear. We're not going to know until Nintendo tells us, but I feel like the fact that there isn't like some sort of mass effort to like block or masquerade this in any way could be indicative that this is not a legitimate leak. I do think it's strange that Nintendo's been so quiet and secretive about Tears of the Kingdom, and yet somehow about half a year before, a little bit less than half a year before the release of Tears of the Kingdom, an entire OLED model was leaked. That seems odd to me. I've never seen something like this leak so early beforehand, and people do have the capability to fabricate things like this. So what I gotta ask myself, what's more likely? That someone went through the effort to make something to look like a Tears of the Kingdom OLED edition with all these nice little details, with some minor things that are kind of questionable, versus them actually leaking a legitimate OLED edition 5.5 months before it's coming out. That I'm skeptical of. I feel like what makes the most sense is that this is more likely a fake leak, something that's fabricated, because what are the odds that this will be leaked? I mean, leaks do happen, but do they happen this far in advance? I don't know. Maybe this is a sign that Nintendo has a presentation for Tears of the Kingdom really soon, and they're putting all the things together early on because they're going to have a massive marketing campaign, and it's going to start off by announcing a Tears of the Kingdom OLED edition. Maybe that's the case. It's tough to say for sure, but I'm gonna actually lean more towards this being fake now. When I initially saw it, I was a prisoner of the moment, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is real. Now I'm gonna say I'm 70%. No, let's say 60. I'm 60% that this is fake, and 40% that this is real. So we shall see. If you guys have noticed any other details about this that may either A, suggest it's real, let me know in the comments below, or vice versa, if any details that may suggest it's fake. I'm curious what you guys think, so let me know in the comments below. This is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.